one thing I want to talk about today is taking off the mask. It seems that I've been hearing a lot lately of everyone has this facade over, their face, that they portray themselves a certain way in certain situations, whether it be at work you act a certain way, people know you a certain way. If you're at home or if you're at church, you act a different way, all these different types of personas, these facades that are over our faces, these masks. Remove that mask to become what you are meant to be, not a facade, not a facsimile of, this is the way that you're supposed to be, or you think you're supposed to be, or the way that someone had brought you up to believe this is the way it's supposed to be, especially going to church, in this sense what we're talking about. You act a certain way in church. When you walk out the doors, you act completely different. But in all reality, what you got to realize is you are the church. 24/7, you are the church. The way you act inside a church building is the same way you should act outside of a church building. The way you act around your friends, the way you act around your colleagues, the way you act around those that are in positions of power. Any position, you should be the same always. You should be that ambassador for Christ, that ambassador for the kingdom. So many people use that facade. People put this facade on to think that, in order to be a Christian, you have to be this way. Like a cookie cutter. Everything's stamped just the way it's supposed to be. It looks exactly the way it's supposed to be. You act a certain way, and that's what it is. But in all reality, that's not what God wants us for. If that was the case, not everyone would have a different gift. Every single person would have the exact same cookie cutter gift. That's why we're better as a group, in the sense that all of those gifts combine to make a whole church. Whether it be the gift of healing, whether it be, the gift of prophecy, there's gifts of giving, there's multiple gifts. And not every single individual is going to have every one of those gifts at any given moment. But that facade is very much an issue in the church, in the sense that, they tell you when you're in a position of power that you're not supposed to talk about having problems, or you're not supposed to use what they call the bully pulpit to stress situations and issues at hand that can be taken care of, because for various reasons it's man's thinking that this pulpit is so above everyone else that nobody's allowed to have any issues, and those in the pulpit have as many issues as those out of the pulpit, and that's kind of the problem. Anyway, some of the things I wanted to read about today was in Matthew 14. It's right after they've fed the multitudes, and Jesus put the disciples, told them to get on the boat and go on across the sea while he goes to pray, and he will meet up with them later. And I want to read Matthew 14:23, I think, up to 33. Matthew 14:23 to 33. That's what I'm going to read. And then I'm going to get back to the point. It says, "And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into the mountain apart to pray. And when the evening has come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and began to sink. He cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came, and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. Now, I know you're curious as to why is that part of me talking about a facade. The point is, Peter, who was Jesus' closest friend, or one of his closest friends at that time, who knew Jesus was the Son of God, who's seen miracles at Jesus' hands, should have been that quote-unquote perfect Christian. But yet he had doubts. When he got out and walked on the water, he became afraid and he sank. He fell. And Jesus was there to pick him back up. Reached his hand out and grabbed him so he could not sink. See, the point is, that facade is just like that ship. And we're afraid to get out there in the wind and the waves and the water is boisterous and, you know, everything's just horrible. This storm that's all around. And when we're brave enough to get outside of that ship, that facade, if you will, and become ourselves, become a more real self. But the point is, as we pursue righteousness, we walk out on that water, as we lose that facade, we get a little nervous because we're out of our comfort zone. And many times we fall. Even those in the pulpit, those who know God best, those who were there, Jesus' best friend, fell. He fell in the water. And Jesus was there to pick him up. Did not let him fall into the water to the point of drowning. He lifted him back up. We need to leave the ship. We all need to walk out to Jesus on that water when he says, Come. Come to me. Don't be afraid to hide behind the facade any longer. Walk out onto the water. If you fall, Jesus is there to pick you up. He's not going to let you flounder. He's not going to let you drown. You see, that facade is man's world. That facade is what man wants you to be. Don't be what man wants you to be. Be what God wants you to be. Who God made you to be. We're not perfect. We're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be different. We're different in the way that God created us. We're all different. We all have our own angle at things. If we all thought the exact same way, there would be no reason for anything, because everything would be the same. Don't be afraid to step out onto the water, away from that facade, away from that ship. Don't be afraid, because Jesus has you. His hands are outstretched, waiting for you to come to him. He says, Come. Jesus says, Come. Leave the boat. Leave that facade behind. Be free. Be righteous. Be not afraid. Jesus will pick you up when you fall. And we all fall. We will fall. Some of us fall head over heels. Some of us fall flat on our face. Some of us fall on our back. Some of us fall on our butt. Some of us fall to our knees. But we all fall in one way or another. Probably every day at some point or another. We probably all fall continuously. But be not afraid. Jesus says come. Step out of the boat. Leave that facade behind and be truly free. With that, I'm going to let you go. I want you to know that we love you. We're here for you. God wants you to be you. Not what man wants you to be, but what God wants you to be. Seek God. Seek the truth and be free. The truth will always set you free. Goodbye for now.